Hey folks, welcome back to the shop today. We've got a cool, unique pistol that has come in. It's actually been in the shop a couple of times for repairs. This time it just kind of quit working, which is... Um, let's start with this. It is a Hudson H9 9mm. Um, kind of a cool gun. I have to admit, having talked to employees that work or formerly used to work at Hudson, um, I'm less and less impressed with it. Now that I've shot it pretty significantly as well, I'm even less impressed with the gun. It's actually got kind of a snappy recoil for as heavy as it is. Um, it's a cool, unique design, and I'm glad people are trying to innovate out there. Don't get me wrong. I think with a little bit of more development, this gun would have been fantastic. But it's got a couple of shortcomings, man. Um, it was kind of announced release 2007ish, shot show area, so January 2017. Excuse me, not 2007. And it it was expensive. I think MSRP was about $1,200, give or take. Most of them were going for sale for about $900 to $1,000, I think. You can find them as cheap as $600-700 now on Gunbroker if you go look. The downside, they do break, and all of the ones that did break and were sent back to Hudson are still somewhere. The customers never got their guns back because Hudson declared bankruptcy March 2019 this year, and there's nothing. They can't do anything to get their guns back or whatever else. This customer heard that they were starting to have problems and refused to set it in, and so they brought it to me. I managed to locate parts. Parts are available for this gun, very, very limitedly though. Kind of one of those things that, like, once they're gone, I think they're going to be gone. And if I remember correctly, let me see. Let me get my paper. Yeah, HudsonGunParts.com. HudsonGunParts.com. Those are the guys that are going to have. They've got threaded barrels. They've got some small internal parts that if they break, I had to buy a striker, and then the thumb safety hole plug thing here, which I'll show you as we take it apart. I'm going to show you how to take it down. We're going to go all the way down with it, all the way back together. I'm going to show you some things that you make sure that you don't do, or you could damage stuff on the gun. So let's just go ahead and start with that. To start off with, get the slide out of here, pull it back, and you can pushing on that little guy there. You're going to push that out and then rotate it. And it's not as easy all the way as you want it to be. There we go. And rotate it down like that. And like any other striker fired gun, when you bring the slide forward, you have to pull the trigger, and then from there, the barrel comes out of the slide. The recoil assembly here does not come out yet. I'll show you that here in a minute. But barrel. Now, the slide comes apart like a lot of other just striker fired. You know, there's the little plunger cup right here. You stick a tool in there, just kind of push it back, and the end plate of the slide, you can pop that out. Now you're going to get your spring, your striker spring, and the little guide rod for it. Push down on your firing pin stop there, and you should be able to... your striker will come back this far, and now you need to dump that block and its spring out, and then slide your striker out. There's a spring in there too. Hurrah! Okay. That's no bueno. What's going on here, buddy? Huh? Fucking striker spring got into a bind, man. It's fucked. How about that? Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, little striker spring's all bent as shit, man. Oh, fuck. That's the striker return spring. Now, there's a little plunger inside of your striker itself, and it's got a little pin that holds it in here. And on this gun, kind of falls out pretty easily. Oh, there it goes. But that's the little pin, and that's the little plunger that was inside of there. And that pin goes through this little slot. I had to replace the striker in this particular gun. It sheared off right here at the tail where it actually catches the firing pin block. That whole piece just sheared off. So I can't attest for the quality of these parts, but this part does not look like the other one as far as surface finish. I haven't really checked about material, so I don't know if Hudson gun parts, I'm pretty sure they just bought up all of the small parts and things like that that the other manufacturer was producing. They just bought them up. The extractor here, there's a detent underneath there you've got to push in and pop out your extractor like that. And then there is a pin and spring. Woohoo! There it is. Plunger and spring that goes behind that, and that's all there is to the slide. And this plunger interacts on the back of the slide like that. And when you see it from the outside, what you're trying to do, what I did with this little screwdriver, is just push this plunger back and then pop the extractor out. So there's that. So there's the slide. We're done with that guy. I'm going to have to either reshape this spring here or find another spring because that thing's pretty effed. So that would be the third problem I've seen with this gun now. So we'll carry on. We're going to get the grips off here first. I couldn't tell you the size of that grip screw. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. It's a hex something. And they're pretty tight. They're kind of a bitch to get off. Tight as in the head itself compared to the bit. The threads are, I mean, they're easy. They're like a 1911. You don't want to strip them out. Grip pin will come off there. That. So, the next thing that we're going to jump into here, let's see, where do I want to go with this? We're going to take this takedown pin now. Well, actually, you can really just take a small screwdriver and kind of pop it out. This one's pretty tight. I guess some of them come out real easy. I gotta come out. Next thing you need to do is remove this pin that goes through here. Now, the way this works is there's a detent that runs along this rail here. Let me try and move this camera so you guys can see a little more of what I'm doing. There's a detent that runs along and hide inside of here. I don't know if you can see that or not. But this piece rotates up. Like if it were a thumb safety itself, it would flick up and down. So you have to rotate this piece because it's got it's what's capturing this pin. So if you can't figure it out, don't go beating on it. But the way I do it is I just take a thin bladed screwdriver and pop it in there and see how it rotated up. Well, now it'll just come right out. And so will your pin here in a second. Actually, let me put that down and I'll pull that pin out. Let's see. You gonna rotate on me? No, whoa. There we go. If you reset the sear band, it comes right out. And you can just reach in there and just kind of push down on the sear, and it'll pop right out. But the way that's held in there, and this one's in the white because that's the only way that when they come from that HudsonGunParts.com, it's in the white, and these are stainless steel. This is a stainless steel part. At least I'm pretty sure it is. It wouldn't. No, it's carbon steel. That or it's magnetic stainless, but I tried to blue it, man, and it wouldn't blue. It wouldn't take any form of bluing, so I may have to just paint it if she wants, or if this person wants the wants it black or whatever. But yeah, it wouldn't take any any of the bluing. But anyways, you can see how it's got that little key slot there, and it's got like a key. I don't know if you can see that or not, man, but it's keyed. So it slides in and then that piece rotates down onto it over that slot, and that's what holds it together. So if you try to go beating this thing out of the gun, and you don't know that's there, or trying to pry this off one side, man, that little tab right there will snap smooth the hell off. And then nothing will stay in the gun, and it'll cause all kinds of havoc inside the gun. Now that we have that off, your I don't know, your internal frame will come right out of here, man. This one's a little bit tight. Let's see, it pops up, and this here is the serialized portion of the gun. And they did this on purpose so they can make it modular. They were supposed to have come out with an alloy frame that you could put this in that would lighten it up a little bit. My understanding, it was supposed to lighten it up pretty significantly. Before I go tearing that apart, now that that's out, your recoil assembly will just come out, no problem. We can go ahead, and your magazine release will come out just like a 1911. You just push in slightly, rotate that screw, fiddle with it just a bit, and it'll come out. That piece just, you know, if you just turn that screw back in, and it'll cam out with its spring and all that. Now, we knock this, I probably should have done this a little bit earlier, but you've knocked that pin down here at the bottom of the grip, and this, on a normal, I guess like a 1911, that would actually be the mainspring housing, but this is literally just made out of what looks to be like a G10 material, like the grips, and it's just a filler for the back of this thing. Come down here, the beaver tail will slide off, and then that's your shear spring, trigger spring and shear spring, trigger return spring, shear spring, kind of like a 1911. They were trying their damnedest to make a striker fire 1911. They got pretty close. Trigger shoe comes out of the top, not the back like a 1911. The dingus, as Tim over there at the Military Arms channel calls them, your trigger safety here, instead of just blocking the rearward travel through some kind of swinging mechanism, when you push that down, this little pin slides up and down inside of that doodad there, and it fits inside that little recess right there on the bottom of the I don't know, the fire control group, I guess is what we'll call it. Trigger housing, fire control housing, yeah, whatever. And that's what prevents it from traveling backwards when that pin's engaged, so you actually have to push the trigger to let it slide. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool. This here is your over travel screw, you know, to take up your over travel on your trigger. It felt pretty nice when I was shooting it, so I'm not going to dick with that, dude. I mean, you can adjust it as you want, but that's you, man. That's it. That's all there's the frame. Supposedly they were going to come out with some an alloy frame. This is what they were talking about. You're going to replace this. There were certain spots on it that were still made out of steel, but they were saying it was supposed to make the gun as light as the VP9s, I guess. But, that's all there is to that. Now, the front of this is all pretty easy to disassemble. All you're going to do, this little spring here, this is your, this spring detents that takedown lever and your slide stop here. That'll be the last thing we take out. Is the slide stop itself. But from here, this sear is under spring tension. You can see the can you see it? Yeah, the little springy dingy there in its leg. But the pins just push right out. It's no big deal. You push the pin out, set the pin there. Now that pin also retains the sear spring, but your ejector as well. And then you've got your disconnector, and I don't know if you want to call it a secondary sear or whatever. Pull that pin out, and that houses, this is what would have been the traditional sear in a 1911. That's what this part is here, and that acts against this. So it sits on top and this orientation inside the gun. So that's when the sears engage. So when it's pushed out, it slips off and drops down here. So there's that. That's your disconnector. Looks kind of like a 1911, like a stubby ass 1911 disconnector. This little piece here is the firing pin block lever. I don't know. It's what pushes the firing pin block out of the way when you pull the trigger. Now, there's a couple of things. This plunger and detent, this detent plunger, I should say, that is here, and its spring. It's not, unless it's busted, I wouldn't try dicking with it, because this roll pin that holds that thing in is in a blind hole. There's no way to access it from the other side at all. It is straight up in a blind hole. So you'd have to find pliers, pinch it, yank it out of there, which means you're going to crush it in the process, and it's just not worth all that mess, man. Now, the slide stop. You can push it out. Usually it requires a small punch, and I don't really know how to get a hold of this and show you. This is like a 3/32 punch or something, and that's typically what I'll do is I'll take that and a small hammer and pop it loose. The first time you do that, it's going to be really tight, but you can see how this little piece here has the Hudson there, so it just kind of keys into that thing like that. So, but that's it, man. That's all of it. That is one Hudson 100% taken apart. I'm not going to mess with knocking the roll pins out of this and pulling the trigger shoe off and all that shit. It's just not worth it. Yeah, that's too big of a pain in the ass to worry about. But that's as far as you would ever need to take that thing down. It's a lot more simplistic. The only thing that I suggest to you is that when you're putting, and we'll go back to this when I reassemble the gun, is when you're disassembling the gun, pay attention to the orientation on how all these little sear parts fit inside of this thing. It'll save you a bunch of time from jumping back and forth with computers or manuals or whatever else that you might have. It goes back together just as easy as it came apart. Once you know what you're doing, it's just super simple. So, all right, guys, give me a like, share, subscribe. That'd be great. You guys have a wonderful day.